let's start out at the very beginning. When was it that you knew you wanted to be a teacher?
I was 7 years old. I had my dolls lined up. I would bring home my papers on the weekend, you know, those little weekend folders. And I'd get my papers and set them out, and I was the teacher, and I'd pass them out, and I'd talk to my dolls as though they were students, and I'd keep records, and it was fun. I thought it was a lot of fun. So 7.
And what, along the way, I'm sure that you had some teachers that you had growing up or through school, or maybe even throughout your career that you thought, that's the person I want to pattern myself after?
Yeah, there have been. When I was in 8th grade, a woman by the name of Mrs. Lorig, she was my 8th grade English teacher. I thought she was wonderful. And Mr. Johnson was my 8th grade science teacher, and he too was wonderful. And the thing I liked about him the most was that I wouldn't say I was gifted, but I liked science more than other people liked science. So he let me stay after school and dissect frogs and things that he wasn't going to do with the rest of the class. I thought that was pretty neat that he cared that much to do that with me. Yeah. And then as an adult, my first year of teaching is, well, I don't know if you realize this, but first year of teaching is horrible. Absolutely, it's a nightmare because you're trying to figure out what to do behind the desk instead of in front of the desk. And there was this dear woman, her name was Dorothy Akis, and she helped me get through that first year. And she was a math teacher as well, but she just showed me how to maintain classroom control. And
What is it that's so tough about that first year? I mean, what do you think it is that's so tough?
Well, you know what you're supposed to do, but all of a sudden the theory is thrown out the window and the reality sets in, and not every kid is that kid that wants to learn. And many of the kids are only there to have an audience. And so then you're vying for the attention of your class and trying to figure out what to do with that clown. And then you feel like, or at least I felt like, all the parents would always be behind the teacher because my parents were always behind me. And that too was not a true statement. And so it was very difficult. Actually, the second semester, my husband said to me, you have to make a decision. You either have to come home and quit school at 5 o'clock, or we're leaving because we don't get any of your time. And I think that was really wise on his part because it helped me to put things back into perspective.
Now, how long have you been teaching, and how long have you been teaching here?
I've been teaching 32 years total, and I've been in East Richland District for 12 years.
And for somebody who doesn't know this school, who's never walked in here, doesn't know the staff, the kids, what would you tell them about this school?
Oh my. I've taught in Waukegan, I've taught at Prairie Central, and both of those districts were wonderful. But it was here that I had a computer placed on my desk. This district is very progressive. And I came, like I said, 12 years ago, and I had to learn how to acclimate to the computer and the grades on the computer and everything being connected. And then since that time, we've gotten iPads, and I've had to acclimate to that. We've gotten smart boards. I had to acclimate to that. It seems like since I've been here, I've done a lot of growing and assimilating into the role that is expected. The quality of educators in this district, honestly, all of them deserve a gold apple. They're above, they go above and beyond all the time. All the time. There's not a slacker that I know in this district. So.
Now, there are probably some people that say, why middle schoolers? why middle schoolers? Why is it that age? Why teach that age?
Oh, I love middle school. Middle school students are still malleable. When they're high school students, they're cynical. When they're elementary students, they love their teacher and they mimic their teacher. In middle school, they begin to get their own wings, but they still care about your opinion, if you care about their opinion. There's no falsehood here. If you've got a booger hanging from your nose here, they're going to tell you you have a booger hanging from your nose here. And I appreciate that about them. There's no pretense, no falsities. If they love you, they love you. If they don't, they don't, and it's obvious. So I love middle school.
Have there been any moments in your career that you can think of that you had that were those moments that you came home or you thought back and said, this is why I'm doing this?
I have a couple. Way back towards the beginning of teaching, I had moved from Waukegan down to Prairie Central, and I took a group of kids to Special Olympics. And I was working with the kids in this group, and from behind the counter, this woman asks one of the other adults that was with me, "Is that Mrs. Davis?" And she goes, "Well, yeah." So I go over there, and behind the counter stands a former student from Waukegan who proceeds to tell me, now I'm a young person at this point, proceeds to tell me that the reason she's in college is because I made her believe in herself. And I thought, wow, I got my Andy Warhol 10. Okay? But then just a few years ago here, probably 8 years ago, I had a student by the name of Ethan Harrell who was struggling, but he was a wonderful musician. I mean, that boy was a musician beyond musicians. He was intelligent, he just didn't care about math. So one morning I got up at 6 and met him for jazz band practice. And the jazz band teacher and I had already talked, and he was going to be on eligibility in jazz band. And he had to do his work for me, or she wasn't going to let him go to jazz band. He'd have to come work with me. At the end of that year, I got a letter from him and a little willow tree. And he said, I made him feel like he was somebody. Now, I didn't make him feel like he was somebody. I made him work so that he knew he was somebody. And those two things, there are others, but those two things keep me going on a bad day.
Yeah. And if somebody walks into your classroom on any given day, what are they going to see? What's your teaching style like? How would you describe that?
Well, my teaching style is, it's related to the audience, okay? Because every class has its own personality. And every middle school student comes in a different state every day, okay? There's no guarantee of how anybody's going to behave, okay? And so what you may think is your plan may have to be set aside for the sake of the children. And so that's, I mean, I know what I'm going to teach today. I just don't know exactly how it's going to be done. I'm going to get through my material, but it really depends on what's going on. My first class I'm going to teach today, I know what I want to teach. I've got a plan, but I have to see how the kids, we have been split apart for a while, and I got to see how the kids are making it back together. Okay? Yeah. So.
And I guess, you know, you've obviously been teaching for a while. When a kid leaves your classroom, maybe this year or 20 years down the road, when they think back at your class, what do you want them to go away with from your classroom? What do you want them to think about?
Well, I think that there are three kinds of teachers. I think that there are those teachers that you remember because they were horrible. And there are those teachers that you remember because they were phenomenal. And then there's a whole slew of them that you really don't remember. Years from now, I'd rather be the one that they don't remember than the one that they remember because of something horrible. And beyond that, you know, I mean, it's about math, but it's about so much more than math. There's so much more that's taught in the middle school besides math, by modeling behaviors, by showing them how to deal with embarrassing situations. You know, there's a lot of stuff that gets taught here outside of the curricula. So.
You obviously were familiar with the Golden Apples. You guys had a winner
yeah,
last year.
Tommy Leslie, he worked with me for a while.
I heard
yes.
that. I heard that. And you know, it's kind of funny because a couple of people, and even Tommy, had said that, you know, he credited you with you know, with him winning that award. What does that mean to you to hear something like that?
The Golden Apple is a wonderful achievement and honor. But to hear that, You know, I mean, that's something that not that I won't carry this in my heart forever, but this is tangible. That's intangible. This is for a moment. That lasts for a lifetime.
Yeah.
So.
And you know, this is, I think, the 26th year.
Wow.
And you know, they give it out to 5 teachers every year. But that's still, even though it's 26 years, it's still a relatively small list of names on that plaque. What does it mean to you to be a part of that small group, to have your name there?
The whole thing. I've done the percentages. I'm a math teacher, okay? When I found out that I was nominated, I thought, oh, I've been nominated by my students. This is a wonderful privilege, okay? And it is. I mean, that is the greatest honor, okay? Then I get the phone call from Tammy Terry. She tells me I'm 18 of 220. I'm thinking, okay, well, that's a little bit less than 10%, okay? And I thought, 18, it's really great to be 18 out of 220. But if you make 5 out of 18, you know, that sounds like, it's 5%, but that's not 5%, okay? That's like 1.5 to 2% out of 220. And I thought, there's just no way. You know, that would be just way beyond anything that I could imagine. And then you came in my room, and I didn't know how to behave. Didn't know how to behave, so.
What, it's funny.
Oh, it's the truth.
What, did you get a chance to read the nomination letter at all? Have you had a chance to read
They
that?
read it to me. Yeah. They had Kleenexes there. The only thing I didn't want to do at the interview was cry. But they read the letter to me, and they had Kleenexes, thank the Lord, because that's the first thing I did was cry. Because I was nominated by 2 different students, Emily Dingman and Rebecca Shires. And Emily struggles, and Rebecca does not. And that's sort of the story of my life. For some reason, the Lord has gifted me to be able to deal with those that can't, as well as those that can. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. And when you're reading those letters, what goes through your mind?
When I read those letters, I find it hard to believe that that's me. I mean, the things are true, okay? The things are true, but the way that they're said, I'm just doing my job. I'm just being myself. I have never tried to win awards or impress people. I've always just wanted to do the best I could do, and then next year do better than I did last year, and better than I've always competed against me, and I've always expected my product to be better than it was before. And so when I read those letters, I think, well, I guess I touched them without even expecting to. I know it sounds kind of dumb, and then who is this person? Sometimes I read them and I think, that's being way too kind. Flattery will get you nowhere, because you do feel kind of that way too. Letters of recommendations, the things that people say, you think, well, where's that all coming from? I mean, they're true, but it's just, when it's all in one spot, it's uncomfortable.
Surely over the years you have some funny moments that have happened in the classroom.
Yeah.
This won't necessarily be in this piece, but we actually run, during the program, we run some
bloopers.
Other pieces. Yeah. So what I'm looking for is just funny moments.
Okay. This is the
moments.
funniest thing that's ever happened to me as I've been working here. I was having a student teacher, and the student teacher supervisor was going to come in to visit me prior to me getting the student teacher. I had worn a pantsuit the week before, and I'd worn pantyhose with it, taken the whole thing off and hung it back up. Unbeknownst to me, the pantyhose were stuck in the pantsuit. The next time I go to wear it, which happens to be this very day, I put new pantyhose on, put the pantsuit on. There are pantyhose in the pantsuit, but I don't realize it. I get to school, my kids come in, the teaching supervisor comes in, and there are pantyhose coming out the bottom of my leg. My kid's going, what is that? And then just as he's walking in, I pull out the pantyhose. The kids are all laughing. He's standing there, and I said, guess it's left over from last week. This is static electricity in action. Talk to your science teacher. But yeah, that was a pretty embarrassing thing. It was a real embarrassing, and the science teacher to this day uses that every year for static electricity. I think, can I not get over that one? But that's the funniest thing that's ever happened to me in school. So.
That's good. And then I guess finally, what does this award mean to you? To see it sit on your desk and to, I'm sure that you've probably had people stop by your classroom and talk to you. You've probably gotten emails and
yes,
those kind of things. What does it mean to you to, once it all finally, I guess, kind of sinks in?
When we lived in Olney, because I don't live here now, I live in Mount Carmel. When we lived in Olney and you do your week of spots, I'd always think, oh, I want that. When Tommy Leslie won it, I was so proud of him. And I thought, oh, I want that. It's just, for me, it's a tangible sign of an intangible gift. And it makes me aware, because of the congratulations and the nice notes and the nice things that were said and the nomination and all the hoopla. It makes me very humbled to realize that I carry that gift, and that I've used it. So it's humbling to me. I mean, as much as it's an award, it's a humbling experience for me.
Very good. Is there anything you'd like to add or anything you'd like to talk about that I didn't ask you?
My kids go flying.
Your kids go flying?
Yep. I had to stand in front of the school board 7 times one summer to get them to okay it. But we go out to the Olney Airport and they run a Young Eagles event, and every kid in the 8th grade gets to fly in a single engine plane over the top of Olney for 15 minutes, and it is the most exciting thing for them and me. Every year I'm excited when they go, because they're anxious. A lot of them, they'll never fly another time. A lot of them, this is it.
And how'd you come up with that idea?
Well, we had been doing we'd done a river project, and it was a summer event, and we had to write lessons around real data. And I had been reading the newspaper about this Young Eagles event, and I thought, oh, that would be so cool. So I called them, and they said yes. I just won't let myself say no to me. And they said yes, and so then I went about getting the school board to say yes, and then we flew, and we fly every year, and it's great fun. It's one of the main things the kids will talk about with their graduation.
And how do you, I mean, I guess, is that part of the deal with kids this age? I mean, to try to find things like that to get them to relate to math? I mean, is that?
Yes. I've got robots. I wrote a grant for robots. I wrote a grant for a whiteboard at one point. I wrote a grant to Michael Jordan. I got $2,600 of his number 26. I've written a grant to MET and made $6,000 from them, because it comes across my desk. I can say no, or I can allow them to say no. And so I fill it out. If they say no, they say no. But most of the time, I'm pleasantly surprised. They say yes. So I'd say to anybody out there, don't limit yourself, don't limit your dreams. Yeah. Search for them and go after them, grab for them.
Yeah. And I guess my last question that I should probably touch on is this is not an easy time to be an educator. No matter where you're at, whether you're in Illinois, Indiana, it's not. What do you think are some of the most challenging, or what's the most challenging thing about being an educator in this time, and what do you think is the most rewarding thing?
I think the most challenging thing that I deal with on a daily basis are kids who, kids that don't believe in themselves, kids that don't think that they have it within themselves to do whatever it is. And it's also the most rewarding when I have this belief that success breeds success. So I have them enter in to my classroom and I give them a task I know they can complete. And then I watch it get built. And that's really rewarding to watch them leave knowing that they can. You know, coming in and thinking they can't and leaving knowing they can. To me, that's teaching. That's what it's all about. So.
And you mentioned earlier that, you know, you feel like you have a gift with those kids that struggle. What is it about those kids that struggle? What is it about that kind of...
Well, I have two kids that are learning disabled myself, biologicals. And so my heart is there. And the other thing is, my dad was a rough man. And he didn't take any crap off of anyone. And he taught us that when you're an adult, you don't take any crap off of anyone, especially when they're younger than you. That there's respect for an elder, and I just sort of demand that respect for an elder. At the same time, I give them respect. I mean, I don't try to tear them down in demanding the respect, but I want them to know which one of us is the teacher and who is not. So, and that's also, you know, some kids don't have enough people in their house teaching them that.